The giraffe is an extraordinary and unique mammal, indigenous to Africa. It's going through challenging times at the moment in terms of its conservation, in terms of its numbers. But interestingly, it's going through challenging times in terms of its taxonomy and its science. That said, there are a number of different either species or races or subspecies, one of which, as you say, is the Maasai giraffe, which is essentially an Eastern African animal. It's, of course, distinctive. You can't mistake it for anything else. It's a very special animal, and especially here in Tanzania, where, of course, it's the national animal, certainly for the mainland. So giraffes are herbivores, as you say. They specialize in 3 or 4 species of woodland miombo savanna tree. They're browsers, as you can tell by a bit of a pointed lip. And of course they also specialize in the higher parts of a tree. Both males and females have, I think, these horny protuberances from their head. They look like horns, but technically they're a little bit different. They are non-territorial. I think their home ranges can be anything from maybe 2 to 200 square kilometers. Generally, they can be in groups of one animal all the way up to 40, 50, but they don't tend always to stay in those groupings. They're quite mobile. However, the solid unit tends to be the female and her offspring. Males are often on their own, moving around. Interestingly, they are also the young, the juveniles often form creches which are looked after by 1 or 2 adults. Males compete for females by this extraordinary fighting, which you may have seen, banging their necks against each other like nothing you've seen from any other animal. Usually this is it's gestural, it's not dangerous, but occasionally it gets quite violent, and animals, I think, have been known to be killed by this. Numbers are considered to be between 20 to 25,000. Now, the importance of that is it's possibly a quarter of the world's population. So it may be that Tanzania has as much as 20 to 25% of the global population. So like with lions, like with elephants, like with wild dog, like with cheetah, Tanzania is extremely important.
Do you know a folk tale or a myth, story, legend about the Maasai giraffe which you would like to share?
Killing a giraffe is a curse. If the world can be calm and friendly like a giraffe, would be in paradise. So that's what they believe to them that harming a giraffe, you are really doing very bad to their god.
Do you know how the Maasai giraffe, or just generally the giraffe, got its long neck?
Like so many species of animals and plants, what you see currently is not an end product. It's where we are now in evolutionary change. Animals and plants constantly compete with each other and with other species for resources, for survival, for opportunity. In order to do that, some traits that are passed on to their offspring will be of value, and therefore they are more likely to breed themselves, and some will not be, and they are more likely to disappear. In the case of the giraffe, that neck has enabled it to feed on, in combination with an extraordinary tongue and mouth, to feed on parts and on species of trees and parts of species of trees that are inaccessible to other herbivores. That potential was quite strong and rapidly, in evolutionary terms, produced this change whereby we have an animal with a very, very distinctive neck.
Do you know why it is called the Maasai giraffe?
Often, many animals are called after areas where they're first observed. That can be good, and that sometimes can be a little bit confusing. There are many species, using the scientific or Latin name, there are many species around Africa, for example, which are called angolensis, which means of Angola, and yet they may be found in Tanzania and Mozambique and blah, blah, blah. Now, we're talking about the common name here, and Maasai, of course, is a part of southern Kenya, and so they were called that initially because that's where the first understanding of that type of giraffe occurred.
One really fun fact about the giraffe is they have the longest neck of any animal in the animal kingdom, but like all mammals, they only have 7 vertebrae in their neck, just the same as we have. Their vertebrae are just about this big, each one, whereas ours are really tiny. So they don't have any more bones in their neck. They have the same number as us, but they just grew really big. So that's pretty cool. They have declined by about 50% in the last few decades, so we really need to act now to protect this wonderful creature which is so important to the ecology of the savannah and also the economy of Tanzania.
They are browsers. If you look in the areas where you have a lot of Maasai giraffe, you will see even the tree are shaped like in a certain fashion, that they are like roundish, umbrella-like, because of their feeding. So they are really, really unique creatures to have them around.
Why is Maasai giraffe so important in Tanzania? What are the environmental, political and economical benefits?
As I said, it's the national animal, and that has great importance, I think, for the nation. Ecologically, it is important because, as I mentioned, it performs a function in the ecosystem that nothing else does. And it's been doing that for such a long time that even trees chemically communicate with each other about when there are giraffes or ants or what have you present. It's very important that there is a balance in nature. As soon as humans tip the balance, then we have problems. And that can be done in all sorts of ways. Each species performs a very important function in a balanced ecosystem. Remove them, so get like playing Jenga. You remove something, eventually it will all collapse. And removing one or two causes instability. Giraffes perform a very unique function. They live in a specific niche, feeding on those top areas of a tree. So they're very important in terms of ecology. And I think economically, as again I've mentioned, they are very important. Tanzania is one of the prime, if not the prime, safari destination in the world. Income generated from the tourist industry is still the biggest source in Tanzania. It is extremely important. The tourist industry employs hundreds of thousands of people, and all the associated industries, many, many more.
I agree Maasai giraffe is important, but I should also go further and say it's not only Maasai giraffe only. Wildlife or any wild animal in Tanzania, they are important because it is an industry that earns to the nation. We depend much on tourism. It contributes much to the economy of the country, but also to the livelihood, but also to the beauty of the country.
Please tell me more about the Maasai giraffe being the national animal.
I think it's a powerful and important tool because it provides recognition for an animal in many ways. And I think it's, in Tanzania's example, I think it's quite good that it isn't something more common. When I say common, I don't mean common as in numbers, I mean commonly used. It's not an elephant or a lion. Giraffe's a little bit different in that respect. So it does present an opportunity, I think, for Tanzania to be proud about its natural heritage. The fact that it has such a large population of giraffe compared to the rest of Africa is very important. So I think the idea of a national animal is an important one.
What is the conservation status of the Maasai giraffe?
How an animal or a plant is given a criterion, critically endangered, vulnerable, etc., is based on specific things such as population size, area, recent impacts, etc. The taxonomy of giraffes is not fully agreed on yet, or not really agreed on at all. Is there one species? Is there two? Is there five? Is there nine? One could say, well, does it really matter? Well, actually it matters a lot. If it's one species, then it is a much more common animal, the Nithira9, which will be much rarer. All sorts of studies have shown that over the last 20 years, populations of giraffe across Africa are in decline. So it is without doubt that there is a problem, and that they are increasingly threatened.
What do you think about CITES' decision to place giraffes on Appendix 2?
CITES is it's a convention of parties. So it isn't an individual entity, it's a group of nations coming together to best manage biological resource trade. Many people think it's a conservation organisation, but it isn't necessarily. That said, it's very important for conservation, but it doesn't mean that it is only concerned with protection. So, if I'm honest with you, I think it's a combination of things. You can argue, well, it's good that it's got international recognition of a problem. It will reduce trade. That said, the current problem with giraffe, including the Maasai giraffe, is not international trade. So will it solve the current problem with giraffes? Probably not.